Did you know that the idea for Coachella originated because of a Ticketmaster boycott?
No, I didn't. What happened?
In 1993, Pearl Jam decided to play at the iconic Empire Polo Fields in the desert because they were boycotting all venues controlled by Ticketmaster. So they didn't have anywhere to play. So they were like, let's just find a spot in the desert and have our fans show up to this location in the middle of nowhere and put on a show. And that was in 1993. And it proved that that venue could potentially be a good option for holding a crowd in the future. 6 years later, Coachella would hold its first ever festival on the grounds, and that is where Coachella was born. So in this episode, we're going to get into the history of Coachella. I know you saw a documentary that you love going into, which we'll get into all of those cool facts. And then I also just really want to talk about in this episode the thesis of it is going to be that Coachella is a great example that in order to be popular, you have to be polar. You have to be polarizing. People love to hate Coachella. I love to love Coachella. People love to hate it. And I think that the moment that Coachella might feel that they're losing relevancy will be when there isn't a million think pieces on how bad people think the lineup is. How influencers have infiltrated it. That when there's nothing about that, they should be concerned.
Right. Because at the very least, there's always a conversation happening around it every single year.
Exactly. So we're going to kind of talk about that as the thesis. And then at the end of this episode, we'll also just get into some personal things, the People's Choice Awards.
Dude, we went to the People's Choice Awards. I have a crazy story time. Crazy story. I may, to this day, we don't know, may or may not have infiltrated the red carpet.
No,
I don't know if I was supposed to be there or not.
I think you were.
I hope I was.
I think he was. And so we're going to talk about that. And then also just Love is Blind because it's all over my feed.
Yeah, me too. We need to talk about it.
Yes. No spoilers, but I have to tell Nicky 2 instances to really tie in what I've just witnessed.
I'm ready. Well, you know
show.
I love spoilers too. So.
Yeah. So for those of you new here, hi, I'm Coco.
I'm Nicky.
And this is Share Your Screen. Again, thank you guys so much for all the support. Like, I feel like I say that every episode, but I really am truly like taken aback at the growth of the podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
Even not just the YouTube channel, but our actual listeners on Spotify, Apple, and Google have been like really growing high.
I know. And I think too, even just like having interactions with people in real life, like saying something from like a specific episode. I'm like, whoa. Like I don't know. It's so like, it's weird. Like right now I'm talking to a camera, you know what I mean? It's like crazy to think that there's like people watching.
Yeah. And I think too, like I'm noticing the branding of Share Your Screen is getting out there because when we first started filming together, I would meet people in person or we'd be together and they'd be like, oh, I see clips of you guys together. But now, like when we meet people, they will say, you're from Share Your Screen. And I'm like, yay. So thank you guys so much. As always, subscribe, follow us on Discord so you can continue the convo. Let us know if you've ever been to Coachella. If you haven't, what you think of it from like a outsider perspective. Let's continue the convo there. And most importantly, let's continue the convo in the comments. Those are honestly, I love refreshing our comments to like see what people are saying because you guys are just so supportive. And also something really cool about YouTube comments, maybe because there's like more, like there's not a character limit.
Yes.
People will say things in our comments that I never thought, like I'm educated from our comments.
Oh no. And I feel like it's inspired episodes multiple times.
Yes.
Like if you guys want an episode about something, comment it. We read every single one.
Yes. And we see comments like y'all want a Lana Del Rey episode, which that one, we just want to make it like multiple parts.
Yeah. And I think it would be cool to time it with when she actually headlines.
Yeah. So that one's coming as well. So we're going to get back into this idea of Coachella. I would love to know, Nicky, you always bring up the documentary. I ended up watching it this episode, but you have so many moments from it that I think you really like resonate with you.
Yeah. I mean, the beginning of it was so fascinating to me because keep in mind, like now we think of Coachella, you go, you know, there's going to be venues, you know, there's going to be water, you know, there's going to be food. At one point, somebody was just like, let's start a business and have thousands, tens of thousands of people drive from Los Angeles to the middle of the desert to watch music. Like, how do you convince people of that, right? Like, you see how unorganized, like, full-blown concert venues get to even convince people that they'll be like safe or like to manage that, to have staff in the desert all day. Like it's so impressive that this business started from essentially nothing, like a kind of, you know, and again, like you said, against Ticketmaster, like this anti-branding and anti-business, like, and it has just transcended to become like the most popular thing of music in the year, essentially. And I think that is like so admirable and fascinating when you think about like the origin of like, how do you start a music festival? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And something like we talk about in so many of our episodes, which is that usually a good thing takes a long time to get there. And Coachella like lost so much money its first year, almost $1 million. They didn't even put it on the next year.
Right.
They had to skip a year to like
recoup
the people who performed that first year at Coachella in 1999, which was like Beck, Rage Against the Machine. They were only agreed to do it because they had such good faith in the guys putting it on, Rick Van Santine and Paul Tillett, that they agreed to deferred payment. So they could get paid in 10 years. They didn't know. They just said they were going to do it. And one of the guys in the documentary, who I think went to prison for this, was saying like, if I had a good lawyer, they would have told me to file for bankruptcy, but I wouldn't have done that because it meant that all those people would lose out on money. And I'd rather like go to prison, get in trouble now, have everyone hate me, but still be able to one day pay those people back.
That was exactly what, like, that story is so beautiful. And also talk about believing in something, like to this near point of delusion. I don't remember. I need to find this study because I reference it all the time of like, they did this like psychological evaluation of a bunch of people who are like experts in their field, right? So like reach the top 1% or whatever. Either it's like based in money they make or like achievements they had. And the number one psychological trait among all of these people was like a near sense of delusional self-confidence. Was like that. They almost like to defy reality, just like believed something would work. And when you see something like that, like imagine losing $850,000, then going to prison and being like, you know what, let me not file for bankruptcy because I know this thing's going to work. It's like, it's delusion. You literally have to be delusional.
Yeah. I love that you say that because it makes me think of something that I relate to. And I know Quinta Brunson said this once in an interview. Where she's like, I don't have imposter syndrome. And it's funny because I feel that way with like content. There's been other ways in which I've had imposter syndrome, but doing content and marketing, and Quinta Brunson said it, I'm paraphrasing, that like she always knew she was meant to be in those rooms. She was just waiting for everyone else to like catch up and figure it out. And that's like how I feel even about us, where I'm like, of course we have a show with millions of followers. I'm just waiting for the world to like also catch up, but they'll get there.
Period. Yeah. Dude, I remember there's a Lady Gaga quote too, where she's like, I was born famous, but it took people like 24 years for them to find out.
Oh my God.
I was like, that's iconic.
Yes. No, that's so good. So to like the first weekend of Coachella, and it was really branded also as this like anti-Woodstock, because Woodstock was kind of at its height and coming to this messy conclusion around the time that they launched Coachella.
Yeah.
One, Woodstock was up near San Francisco, so it was like wet, muddy. It was like a biohazard, Woodstock was. And it was also something they mentioned in the documentary, very like a lot of white hippies. And Coachella really wanted to be a place where they could have, like, they were one of the first festivals to hire like, you know, rap groups.
Yeah. And
they have Latin groups, K-pop groups. And so Coachella really wanted to be more of like a global representation. And so also something that was really appealing to the people going to Coachella was that a lot of these festivals took place in either Europe or like San Francisco area where it was wet and cold. And Coachella was one of the first times they were doing a festival in the hot desert.
Yeah.
And so people were like, oh, it's actually going to be comfortable. But something that they didn't think about, that they talk about in the documentary, which I'll link in the show notes, is that actual equipment was melting on stage.
Whoa.
And like, that was something they had to learn over the years, how to not have people's thousands of dollars of equipment literally melt.
Right. I remember even one of the other things they said was like, in some of the first few years, they didn't have, like one of the first performances, they didn't have trash cans in the stage section. They only had it like near the food stuff because they're like, oh, that's where people are going to have trash. The pictures of like, it was They said they had to pay people tens of thousands of dollars in overtime, had to pay trash companies like to drive trucks, because where do you put it all? You don't have the trash cans, right? So they literally were like picking up trash overnight to then like dump into these trucks. And it's like little things like that. Again, like that's why I'm so fascinated in the business of Coachella. Like the fact that how hot is it going to be, and can the Canon 500 whatever take that amount of heat, or are there trash cans every X amount of yards from each other? Like stuff like that is just so interesting to me.
That's why live events are scary to me, and I have a prediction later in this episode about why I think we're moving away from live events and what's coming next. But another thing really interesting about Coachella is that it's now known as like this April festival. Like I think of April as Coachella. Like that's what it's known for. But it originally took place in October, but they switched the dates to April for two reasons. One, they wanted to no longer compete. All of the other famous festivals take place in September and October and August. So they were like, well, let's not do it that time of year. Everyone else is. They also wanted to move it to right before the summer heat because people's equipment was melting on stage. And so they moved it to April. Also, I think this was a good business decision because everyone gets their tax returns. They get money in the beginning of the year. And if you're spending money to go to a festival in April, but if your festival is in September, October, November, there's a chance that people will more so spend their money on the first few festivals than the last few.
Yeah. That's so smart. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And now I also want to talk about when Coachella really, I think, became popular. You wanted to mention one thing about the actual performers, and it fell on this same weekend, but Coachella went against industry precedent in 2012 by launching 2 weekends. They were the first festival to be like, we are so popular, we're going to do it twice. And they originally wanted to have 2 different lineups, but something that seems to be a common thread here is that they were terrified of running out of headliners. Like there's only so many A-list famous people.
Right.
And so they, again, went against precedent and were like, we're going to have the same people just perform 2 weekends. And it became, I think that was really also the moment that they set the standard is like, we are the festival to be that we go twice. No one else does that.
Yeah. And I also think it makes it even more desirable to get talent, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're blocking that time out of your calendar, if you're prepping for a specific performance, they want to do it twice and earn twice the amount of money, or like have twice the amount of press and stuff like that. So I actually think it ended up helping them get these like mega stars later on.
Yeah. And another thing is which this will transition nicely into what you wanted to talk about, but that Coachella has really, this is where it becomes polarizing, that in order to be popular, you have to be polarizing. And something that Coachella does that's polarizing is they are really someone that encourages artists to use new technology in their performances, even if it's seen as controversial.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 2012 performance of Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg is what put Coachella on the map as like a legacy performance. Like it's like to like Super Bowl performance level almost, where like they brought out the Tupac hologram and it just broke the internet. One, imagine like doing a hologram in 2024 sounds like advanced technology. In 2012, no way anybody thought that was even possible, right? And I also think it's really beautiful. Did you know that Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg actually met with Tupac's mom to ask for permission?
That's the right thing.
And she said she ended up loving the performance and felt like it was honoring his legacy. And that is why I think it really cemented this idea of like, it's not just a music festival. It's like you're honoring your catalog. You're honoring everything you've done to get to this point. And that, I think, like once Dr. Dre and Snoop did that, if you look at every artist after that, they start adding the pyrotechnics, they start adding the lights, they start doing all this. Like Coachella used to just be a festival and they made it a legacy.
Yeah, it really is a legacy performance. Like I think I could see Beyonce being maybe one of the only artists to headline Coachella twice now that she has 2.
I brought this up later on. Actually, the only person who's done it, there's some people in the beginning did it twice and it was a smaller festival, but The Weeknd has done it twice because he subbed in for Kanye.
Oh, wait, you're so right. Because
so he is actually the first person to ever do it twice.
Wow, you're so right. Because I remember seeing The Weeknd one year and then, it was like him and like that one like Swedish band or something he makes music with it. Okay, that's fascinating. And another thing like with technology is I remember when I was at Coachella, I'm not even into EDM, all my friends are, but like Odessa was performing, I think it was, and they had a drone show, and it was the first time I'd seen that.
Yeah.
Like, it was like you just look up at the sky and there's all these like lights moving in like owl positions, and I was like, whoa, like especially like I'm not encouraging it, but if someone's like, you know, letting loose that weekend, it's really trippy to be like, you just look in the sky and all these like shapes are forming.
Right. I remember one of the most famous EDM performances of all time was Daft Punk at Coachella.
We are not of this earth.
Yeah, they did all these TVs behind them and all these lasers. And it is actually, a lot of people credit the popularization of specifically those types of lasers in EDM to this one performance where people like saw this creating a visual experience for music. I'm always so fascinated in that too, because I think like music is inherently only audio. It's the only art we consume that we only listen to. And that because of that, they have to be so intentional and calculated with these visual experiences.
Yes.
Like, you know, you think of a Beyonce who's like, she descends from like the sky on a horse at like the beginning of the Renaissance, or there's like a news desk, or she's dressed as a bee. And like, that is something that like she has crafted and like made her thing in a way that like no other artist has even been able to touch. It's this ability to be a performer and like add something to your art live that you can't just get from a stream, you know? And I think that is like such an interesting part of music too.
And like, it sounds like Coachella gives the resources to these people. Cause I've been to other festivals and I was really underwhelmed at like the stage production. Like it was like clear that the artists weren't maybe able to put a ton into their actual performance, whereas Coachella, it's like, and also maybe it's the artist putting the money in, but I'm guessing Coachella's just giving them this big budget to like really go hard. And I could see one year Coachella having a headline performer who's like an AI artist, like a Lil Michaela, but I hope not, because I think art is human, but like I could see it happening.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see something like that.
Yeah, like an AI hologram, like the Tupac thing, but it's not actually based on any real person.
Right. Or it's like a feature, like they do a Tupac type thing with AI. I could totally see.
I also think AI artists, again, I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just saying I see it coming, where record labels, they would, I'm sure, love to have a factory, a warehouse in, Burbank, where they can make these like holographic AI artist streams, because also there's so much less likelihood that they're going to be human and make mistakes that are cancelable.
Right.
They're going to love that they can tell this person what to say. But again, I think it's the human that like attracts people to artists.
But I think the way they'll segue it into popularity is by using a dead artist. So like Michael Jackson comes back via AI for like one concert.
Wow.
And everybody would love it because it's like, you know, like it's fun. You get to hear the music again. You get to see him perform in a way and it would be cool. And I think that's like something that will open people's minds a bit, is like not trying to create something new, but trying to, immortalize the past.
Yeah, I think you're right. And another thing now about Coachella that is kind of the thesis of this episode, which is like, in order to be popular, you have to be polarizing.
Absolutely.
Popularization is polarization. And I say that as someone who, I've said in so many videos, I do not believe that all press is good press. When people say that, I hate it. I'm like, not really. Like, I don't think so. But there is a fine line that people walk where, and like so for example, with Coachella, something they talk about is how every year, like people always hate on the lineup. But what Coachella is doing is, if you're like actually in the industry, they were obsessed with like finding new acts right before they became famous.
Yes.
And that shows in the documentary. Like they're talking about MIA, like all I want to get is chung 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 chung, like that. Like they're obsessed with finding these artists and testing them on the Coachella crowds. And even Beck, one of the first headliners, he's won Grammys, like he's really big in the production side of the industry. He was saying that he loves going to Coachella because it's like a time capsule of music and what's about to take off. And I think you see that with like Blackpink being the first K-pop group, Bad Bunny, Karol G, like they have Peso Pluma this year. Like Coachella I think people think it has to be their favorite pop stars that are on,
Yeah.
that were on Radio Disney. No, it's a globalization now of music, and they're giving a platform to these new artists.
Yeah, I mean, I think the magic of Coachella is like what you always say, the nicher you go, the quicker you grow. And Coachella mastered that, like what you always say, because they, in the beginning, it was only like pop punk rock festival. There was like a lot of these people were creating such commotion at their shows that they didn't want them in Ticketmaster venues. So they kicked them out. So they were like, okay, like you guys all come here, let's have a festival. And then I remember a few years after that, EDM really started to get really popular, but this was in the midst of the early 2000s war on drugs. And when that was like a big thing, they were going into EDM shows and literally arresting people.
It was
like,
literally called like the crack house law.
yeah,
literally
the crack house law, exactly. Arresting DJs, arresting. So then people stopped putting them on because they didn't want to have
Arrested.
their venues raided. So what did Coachella do? Made it one of the biggest EDM festivals. And they were just so good at like, we don't need to be popular to everyone. It's just being polarizing. Like let's master this one audience. We've got that. Okay, now let's go to the next thing. And I think of it as like climbing a ladder. You know what I mean? If you like put your foot up like 4 rungs, you're gonna fall off. But if you just like go one at a time, you'll reach the top. And I think that's like what Coachella has really done better than any festival. And I think to this day, it's so cool. Like the fact that like Latin music and K-pop and like Frank Ocean R&B is a headliner, you will not see that at any other festival. It's like this ability to combine everything together, these unconventional pairings that like are just.
And what you were saying too, it aligns with, in the documentary, they were talking about how when Madonna performed at Coachella for the first time, she was this newer artist who like was kind of breaking mainstream, but not yet. And so they put her, it said on the thing, it said Madonna's name, and then on top it said in the tent, which I'm guessing is eventually what would become the Sahara tent, which when you go to Coachella, Nicky, the Sahara tent is the place to be. But like they said that Madonna brought out this huge crowd, and it was really one of the moments that she became like lamented in the music industry as this new act that was like taking over. But they said in the documentary that what they think happened is a lot of people were just curious enough that they wouldn't buy a Madonna ticket yet.
Yeah.
But like if I'm here in the venue and she's, 3 tents over, let me go check her out and see what she's about.
Totally.
And that was like where she got all these new fans who are then the spreaders of the message of Madonna. And it happened in this
Spreading
tent.
the gospel.
The gospel, literally. So it was really cool that like I think they're really good at capturing these moments that I think a lot of other festivals try to do, but they're really good at capturing these people who like are about to break but maybe can't fill a venue like yet, and then they're at Coachella and it just like other thing about Coachella, like one of my, so this is, I'm going to be talking about the late 2010s era.
Yeah.
And I think that we saw this kind of bubbling over like a teapot of the influencerification of Coachella, which as influencers ourselves, like I don't mind it, but what I mind is when people will go to Coachella and then complain about how much they hate it, but they never even went into the actual venue. They're at like Revolve Fest. I'm like, that's like going to Knott's Berry Farm and then online that you didn't see Mickey Mouse. You didn't even go to Disneyland, or you went the last hour that it was about to close. Of course you had a bad experience. Like,
yeah, or it's just like you're doing it a different way. Like that's not the festival.
It's not. Yeah, and so I think one of the like moments that Coachella really became popularized in like influencer culture was when James Charles and Tana Mojo made a video called roasting YouTuber Coachella outfits in 2018 and 2019, and they got a combined 27 million views. And I think this really shows this peak moment of influencer Coachella. And then I think the bubble bursting in a way, at least of YouTubers, was this is a whole other internet history we won't get into now. The Bye Sisters video by Tati was the catalyst of James Charles going to Coachella with a competing brand. So all roads lead back to Coachella.
Sugar Bear hair. Roads lead back to Sugar Bear hair.
And one funny thing is when I was at Coachella one year, this is when James Charles was like kind of getting famous, like had just done the cover girl thing. And one of the, I was with these 2 guys and they were like, we recognize James Charles. And we asked like, are you James Charles? And he goes, thank you. like the Beyonce.
I feel like that's what he would say.
He was like, thank you.
Yeah.
And just continued. I was like, okay. But yeah, no, I think that, but like this conversation around influencers and hating Coachella just makes Coachella that much more popular.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all started with like King Kylie era.
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
She was really that blue hair at Coachella.
I know.
A flannel tied around the waist.
Vanessa Hudgens.
Like, I think it set the idea of it was like a very cool place to be, right?
Yeah.
Like people you admired really wanted to go there.
Yes.
Therefore, you should want to go there too. But also, I think too, like we've talked about this in other episodes of like how I felt like internet in like this 2015 to like 2019 era was this like glamorization of wealth. And it was like kind of writing off, I think, the ending of this like reality TV Kardashian era where all of these like YouTubers were all getting 20 million views. Like there are movies and TV shows that don't get 20 million views to this day. And yet they were like very shunned from like traditional media and Hollywood. So because of that, I think they felt this need to like overcompensate and be like, look how successful. Look at my off-white belt.
Yeah.
Look at, I just bought a G-Wagon. Look, I bought my friend a car too. I'm wearing a Gucci tracksuit. Like it was just, or what's in my bag, designer bag. Like every single thing was about like
gifting Lamborghinis.
Yeah, like buying something expensive for yourself or buying something expensive for someone else to show like, look how successful I am that I can do this thing. And that's where I think too, like this is really at like Coachella was like the pinnacle of that. Because like influencers weren't invited to the Met Gala. They were, the best they had was Coachella. So they were like pulling out all the stops to look, are they going to dress better than Kylie Jenner or whatever?
You're so right. It was like the closest proximity they could get.
Exactly.
To this like A-list status.
Exactly.
Oh, that's like brilliant. I think you're like spot on the money. And another like prediction, I guess, now that I have for Coachella is I think that and I actually was at Panera right before this getting my charged lemonade. There was a guy sitting in, I was like, this is a sign. There was a guy sitting in Panera with those Apple Vision Pros on. And he was just like, everyone else was working on their laptops. And he was just like his hands were like this. Like he was touching things on this, but he had the goggles on. I think that we are going to see a move away from live events. I think that Renaissance tour eras is like the goal. What we're going to look back, we're going to be telling our grandkids one day, we used to go to live concerts. Those aren't going to exist anymore. Lady Gaga just premiered one of her music videos on Fortnite or is doing like a concert. Taylor Swift literally has a song called Fortnite coming out. I think she's like testing the waters. And like Ariana Grande has done, like Roblox. I think that we are going to reach a point in society where instead of going to Coachella and you're physically in the desert fields, it's going to be put on your Oculus, put on your Apple Vision Pros for 3 days, and your avatar will move through the desert virtually.
Totally. I mean, I agree. I think that is like really, they do all this weird stuff with the VR things. Like, I just feel like they have not been able to figure it out yet. And I agree with you. I think the one thing that's like, I would actually want to be in a virtual reality for is a real world event that I couldn't access.
Yeah.
So like, if you are on the East Coast and want to go to Coachella, that's cool. Yeah. And I'm also surprised that like, I think in the next year, Apple is going to do like a big AMC type partnership, like what AMC did with Taylor. But like, imagine if just Apple did it with Beyonce and was like, we're going to do the Renaissance Act too, but it's like only available on Vision Pro. So like stuff like that is so interesting too. Like, again, exactly what you're saying. Like just if they like get some sort of exclusivity deal to do that. But I also am interested too, because those things are like $3,500. So they need to make it like more
affordable
accessible
eventually. Yes.
Yeah.
But, and I think too, like from the live production standpoint, like AEG, Golden Voice, etc., they probably think that these or like if they could eventually put on a virtual event, what we were saying earlier, how much money they would save on trash, not having to figure out people going to the bathroom, like parking lots, like that would save them so much money, and it would put companies like Ticketmaster out of business.
I think it's just a way to make more money, because I don't think it's free. Like I think you're paying $20
still,
to go to watch it virtually. You know what I mean? Exactly. So yeah, you're so right.
I don't know. I think what we'll see is hybrid events eventually. I think we'll see events where you might see, like, you know, when you're like driving and you see like a Google Maps car with like the little, like we'll see people walking around venues that are holding something that's like a 360 like thing on their head, and there's going to be like 1,000 people are in the venue and 1,000 people are watching from home on like VR goggles.
Totally. Or even like for non-music festival stuff, like well, going back like Met Gala. Like
Yeah.
imagine if Apple just set up like one VR camera on the Met and you could watch it like live, like people walking right past you and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like this concept of like being a fly on the wall.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now you had some facts about Coachella.
I
let's
just
hear
think
it.
that there's so many interesting things like talking about headliners and stuff that I am so fascinated is like, can you guess which Coachella lineup sold the most tickets in history?
I'm only going to guess because I was there, Beyonce.
Actually, no.
No.
Surprisingly. So the first in 2015, they had initially broke the record. That's AC/DC, Drake, and Jack White lineup for 200,000 tickets sold. Then 2017, Beyonce is announced as a Coachella headliner.
I remember.
Along with Kendrick and Radiohead. Then Beyonce ends up dropping out because she was pregnant and her doctors advised against it, very understandably. So then Lady Gaga filled in. So I think the reason that this specifically 2017 is the most sold, 250,000 tickets, is because it's like the only one that ever had like essentially the idea of like four major headliners.
You're right.
Because there was people who bought tickets for Beyonce and then people who bought tickets for Lady Gaga. And also if you just look at like the 2017 lineup, like even like the sub ones, it's just crazy good. It's like Travis Scott, Mac Miller, Schoolboy Q, Martin Garrix.
I was there. It was
Future,
crazy.
Gucci Mane, like Lord. Like it was just such a Little Uzi, like such a time capsule of like popular music.
Yes.
Was like one of the best ever. But then 2018 was The Weeknd, Beyonce, and Eminem, which I believe was the highest grossing, like made the most money. But it's interesting to measure sometimes because the way Coachella makes money isn't always off of tickets. It's like through activations. It's through like YouTube pays for the live stream every year and stuff like that. But Beyonce's live stream performance to this day is the most viewed Coachella performance in history. So like she holds a lot of Coachella records, and I would love if she did it again.
I know. It was one of my biggest life regrets is at Coachella that year, Post Malone was, this would be the worst position to be in. He was on at the same time as Beyonce. Could you imagine? It was like he started like 30 minutes before her, but he's in the Sahara tent and you just saw like 10 minutes before, it was like a mass exodus. Everyone is like looking at the stage. Everyone just turns their head and droves just start moving. So I stayed for like all of Post Malone because I wanted to be there. And he even got off the stage and like touched people's hands and was like, thank you for like staying for my...
Aww.
No, it was like so
Poor
sad.
guy.
But then, so me and the people I was with, we went to go watch Beyonce and we were so far back that like I maybe watched like 3 songs and then just went home and watched the live in my hotel on like the phone.
Yeah, I remember pictures of it. Like you cannot see the end of the crowd.
No, you can't. If you guys have ever been to Coachella, she was on the main stage. Her audience went back to the Ferris wheel. So you couldn't, unless you were on 5 people's shoulders, like you physically couldn't even see the TV screens that they would like show her on.
Right.
So it was huge. It was a huge moment.
I thought that was like one of the best. And then also it got me interesting, like, what do you think is the best Coachella headliner in history? Because I pulled every headliner of the last decade and I want to run through them all and then try and vote like what were the best and what were kind of the worst. So starting in 2015, Drake, AC/DC, Jack White. Drake huge. I'm mid about the other two. 2016, Guns N' Roses, Calvin Harris, LCD Sound System. This was not the festival for Nicky Reardon.
No.
2017, Kendrick, Lady Gaga, Radiohead. Kendrick and Lady Gaga is really good. I feel like they would put on a great performance. 2018, The Weeknd, Beyonce, Eminem. That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm not a big Eminem person.
I'm like kind of mid, but like
it was good. No, it was.
I feel like every year there is one that you're like, yeah,
and that's okay.
2019, Tame Impala, Childish Gambino, Ariana Grande. Also, I will say, looking at the body of this one, has like some of the best of like just additional performers. It's like 1975, Casey Musgraves, Juice WRLD, Blackpink, Anderson .Paak, Kid Cudi, J Balvin, Billie Eilish, Khalid, Zedd, Bad Bunny. Like a lot of people who have gone on to headline Coachella later on were just like sub performers at this one.
Yeah.
So 2019 is a banger. And we didn't have, 2020 and 2021, obviously pandemic. 2022, Harry Styles, Billie Eilish was supposed to be Kanye West and then replaced by The Weeknd.
I went that weekend because when Ye dropped out like 2 weeks before, the prices, all the Kanye fans sold their tickets. The prices dropped. I got tickets for like $200 and I went last minute.
I think that's a great lineup.
It's great. I will insert a photo. I was like really close for Billie Eilish.
And then 2023 is Bad Bunny, Blackpink, Frank Ocean. 2024 is Lana Del Rey, Tyler, the Creator, Doja. Which one is like your number one if you had to pick?
I think I will have to say the Harry Styles, Billie Eilish, and The Weeknd one. Just because that lineup was
it's for the no misses.
It's like very like pop star. Like it was a good. It was my lineup. Was it the best? I don't know. What is it? Coco Moco's best? Yes.
Yes, I think that I don't know. The Weeknd and Beyonce is so good. That's so good. But I think you might be right. I might have to agree with you. Also, people were really hating on 2023 of Bad Bunny, Blackpink, Frank Ocean. I think that's a great 3. I think it's just they're not like popular American music.
They're just global. Exactly.
Yeah.
Again, I would love if there was a documentary. Like, I hate when people say My Roman Empire. I need to know the 24 hours leading up to and after Frank Ocean fumbled the performance, because that's never really happened in Coachella history. And people are saying that like ticket sales were low this year and blaming the lineup this year. I think there were Coachella loyalists who went every year for decades and decided when Frank Ocean didn't come on stage that Sunday first weekend, they were never going to give their money to Coachella again, even though it wasn't really their fault.
Yeah, I mean,
like what happened? I
don't know either. Also got me thinking like, who are the biggest artists to never headline a Coachella? And could they headline Coachella next year? Like some of the ones I thought of was like Rihanna. I know A$AP Rocky recently said that she's been working on music. So I'm like, okay, can we get 2025 Rihanna Coachella headliner with A$AP Rocky guest performer? Are you kidding? That would be so good. After that, Taylor Swift, obviously. I know there's a lot of people who like say Taylor Swift's too big for Coachella. I mean, I guess you can make that argument. I just think, again, like I view Coachella and the Super Bowl in the same lane of like it's a legacy performance. You're not doing it to like sell X amount of tickets. You're doing it because it's like this homage to like your catalog and your career. So I could see something like Taylor and like waits until the Eras tour is completely done and then does like a big like Coachella or Super Bowl type thing.
I think the reason someone like Taylor Swift might wait to do a Coachella and Super Bowl is, again, it's kind of like the only person who it's not like, I don't know if I want to say this because like Billie Eilish did it, but in a way it's like a legacy performance that like this is the pinnacle of my career. Thrives on this narrative that like she still is like so this
always
underdog.
Growing. Yeah, always growing. Yeah. That's a great point. Another one I thought of, BTS. I think if there's one group that could ever break Taylor Swift's record, if there's one group that could ever dethrone Taylor Swift, it is BTS on their like comeback. Because I think that there's something about, it's like this Elvis effect. Like once he went off to the military, it's like what you want, what you can't have. You know what I mean? And this really proved this to me when Jungkook released the song last year, and he holds the record for the fastest to a song ever reach 1 billion streams. No one has ever done that except for him. And I was like, I think it's because there's no BTS music. Like there's no, like when people can't have it, they want it. And Coachella is very clearly like trying to gear up this K-pop wave with Blackpink, and they realize how big the audience is. And I think like a BTS headliner would break the internet.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Another one I thought was Miley Cyrus. Honestly, I thought she could have headlined this year.
I thought she was going to headline this year as well.
But I know she said that she like doesn't really want to do performances like that and stuff. But imagine, I want to bring out the animatronics from the Banger store. Okay, we need those back. We need the tongue.
The hot dog.
We need Bruno Mars comes out to do a Glee style mashup of like When I Was Your Man and Flowers, where they're like singing at each other. Are you kidding?
That'd be so good.
SZA was another one I thought was going to headline this year. She's been at Coachella a bunch, but she has never been a headliner. And I feel like she's on the level too now after this album, especially.
100%.
Another kind of smaller, Olivia Rodrigo, but I think she could do it. Because, I mean, Billie did it with only 2 albums.
Yeah.
3, or another, Nicki Minaj. Surprised that has never been a headliner. And then last, I think we're going to get a country headliner.
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen next year. Big country music wave. We're going to get a Zach Bryan or a Morgan Wallen. I'm hoping for a Casey Musgraves.
I'll do Casey. Yeah,
she's like
been there,
digestible country for the girls and the gays.
Yeah.
And we stand Casey Musgraves. But also something I was thinking about is like Coachella is really known for reuniting old groups. 10 years from now, are we going to get a One Direction reunion? Like the way that they're doing No Doubt reunion right now?
I could see it. And like the Niall Horan at his performance recently just sang Night Changes, which is like maybe a hint at what could come.
There you go. Like I think 15 years from now, we're going to be Barricade and there's going to be like 15-year-olds in the audience. Like, who's that? And I'm just going to shake my head and be like, back in my day, like,
with your
you know what I, like literally like the old man, like,
I know.
And that's just going to be the full circle moment of like, there's children there who have no idea who One Direction is. And it's like the only reason that I'm at the festival.
And that's how I feel with like NSYNC and the other one. Backstreet Boys. Thank you. Like some people will, and by some people, I mean like my older sisters, they'll talk about them like they're like these like gods. And I'm like,
I'm the same way. I was never big into it. I think it's a little before my time.
No disrespect. It's just before our time. Exactly.
But One Direction was there.
No, we were there for One Direction.
We were there.
So I get, is that?
That's all I got.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And yeah, let us know. Also, Dua Lipa, I think, could be a headliner that hasn't headlined yet.
Oh, yeah.
It was speculated that she was going to headline this year, but she didn't. So yeah, I mean, if you guys want to comment below stuff about Coachella, and we'll just really quickly get into People's Choice Awards, and then I want to.
Oh, okay. Should I do my story time?
Yeah.
Okay. So we got invited to the People's Choice Awards.
Mm-hmm.
And we got this email inviting us, which is very typical. However, normally, like if like people invite us to something, they invite me and Colleen together. Like that's pretty common, right? Because I feel like they want us to like talk about the podcast, yada, yada, yada. They, for some reason this time, we had like different call times. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe they just like stagger people's arrival, right? Like yours was like 1:15, mine said 2:30. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'll meet you there. I'll just show up at 2:30. I take my Uber. My Uber's late. He gets stuck in traffic, which is fine. I get there. I'm like texting the girl. I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry. I'm running behind. I get to there. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. The email is not like, maybe I misunderstood it. I just did not know where I was supposed to go. So I go up to this one booth. I'm like, hey, like I'm here with this like company. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. They're like, well, are you talent? I'm like, I'm talented. I don't know. Am I? Like, I don't know. So they're like, well, are you performing in the show? I'm like, I'm flattered that you think I could be here considerably being one of the performers of the People's Choice Awards. Obviously not. So like, okay, yeah, you're not in the right line then. I was like, okay, cool. So then the girls like pull me out of line and they're talking to me, like trying to figure out where to go. I'm like, I don't know. I'm with this company called FanMade, blah, blah, blah. They're like, okay, you should go to like press, like media and press. I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like I'm here to like film content. Go to this like booth, like trailer. I'm like, hi, I'm here with this company called FanMade. They're like, okay, great. Like we have FanMade on our list. What's your name? Look at the names. My name is not anywhere on this list. They're like, you're not here. Sorry. So I'm like, okay, like I don't really know where to go then. Like I've been to talent, I've been to press. There was this other tent that like turned me away. They're like, okay, no, I think you need to go to this like other door. Like they're like, go to the gray lot. Like I know what the fucking gray lot is.
Everything looks gray here.
Gray lot. I saw pink lot. I saw blue lot. I saw green lot. No gray lot. So I just keep walking. Eventually I find this group of girls walking in front of me and I just start following them because I didn't know where to go. And after a while, they kind of like turn around and look at me. They're like, are you lost? Like, do you know where you're going? I was like, I have literally no idea where I am. They're like, come with us. Come with me. I'm like, great. So they also like through conversations, they're like, okay, like who invited you? Who are you here with? I'm like, I'm with this company called FanMade. They're like, great. We're with FanMade too. So like stick with us.
Yeah.
It turns out these two girls own this company called Boys Lie. Shout out to Boys Lie. They also have a podcast. We make great friends. So like we walk around the entire, it was in an airport hangar.
Yeah.
So I walk around the perimeter of this airport hangar to finally like get to this door in the back of it, right? There's like black Escalades pulling up and then us just like walking up. We go through, they like check my name, go through a metal detector, whatever. We get in line and I just like don't know. I hear sounds and we're like standing in this line and then eventually I get to the front of it and they go, how would you like to be announced? I said, announced? Nicky Reardon's fine. Yeah. Like, thanks. They are like, okay. They're like, you're going to walk up to that star, look at the camera. They're like telling me all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So then I just walk. And then apparently it's like the actual red carpet portion. Yeah. So then I start walking down it. I look to my left. Yes. Who do I see?
I'm in like
Coco
the front row
waving
for content
with like a bunch of our friends, and I was like, "What is happening?" Oh, because also I just had no idea where you are. Like,
Yeah.
no, I didn't know where you were. I was just like, "I'm gonna try and find my way into this thing because I'm late and I just like need to get inside." So then I was like, "Okay, great." Like, I do the little walk. I get to the end of it. Then there's like this other row where they're like taking Getty images and stuff, and also like this wasn't the part. Like, I wasn't like Billie Eilish wasn't there yet. Ice Spice wasn't there yet. It was like the people in front of me were like Teffy and like Davis Burleson. And I was like, okay, like I could conceivably be in the right line.
Yeah.
Right. And then once we got to like the photographer part, they're like, you know, like when you take your little Getty thing, they have like a name. Like they're like, what's your name? And they have like printed out pieces of paper. So when I said Nicky Riordan, and they found like a paper with my name on it. So then I get to the end of this thing and I like walk through the door and they're like, excuse me, where's your ticket? I was like, what? They're like, you don't have like a pass, you don't have a ticket. Like, how did you get in here?
Wait, who was it? Security?
Like, yes. So I'm like, I'm so sorry. It's like, I have been literally at every door in this building. I've been at every door in this establishment. I don't know where to go. I'm not trying to impede. I'm not trying to get anywhere. I understand you're doing your job. Like, just tell me where to go. I was like, just tell me where. So then they like get on the phone, they're talking, and I'm also like, they checked my name on a list. So like, they just didn't give me any, like they didn't give me anything. Eventually they like get this like boss lady who comes over. She's so nice and so helpful. She's like, who are you here with? I'm like, fan made. And she's like, who invited you? I was like, her name's Nicole. She's like, great, I have her number. Let me call her. She calls her. She's like, okay, they have your ticket. I'm going to go like find this girl and get it to you. So then they go, she's like, I have to like wait on the side thing. Also, it's just like, honestly, it was kind of mortifying because I feel like people were like walking past me and were like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, why is he standing there? So I was panicking. Then eventually, but again, the staff was so nice.
Okay,
like
good.
all the people at FanMade that like came to my rescue and stuff, so nice, so helpful. And then they came and gave me my ticket and like took me to like the pit area. But everybody else I like walked on the carpet with was like seated. Like they had like designated like assigned seats and stuff. So like, I don't know if I accidentally infiltrated and like wasn't supposed to be there, but also like they had my name on a list and then they had my name printed out.
Yeah.
So like, but then I never got a ticket also. So like, it's just this weird thing, but I think it was kind of like a canon event. Like it was iconic. Exactly. I think it was kind of fun that I was just surprised, walked out, saw all my friends, did my little thing. It was a good time.
Did you see the live? Were you on like?
I don't know.
Watch it.
I
think it was
serving.
E-News. Yeah.
I said
yes, because it was so confusing. Because like when we got there too, and then they were like saving a seat for you, and then it just never. So I think they were like just confused.
I think
the
that they
whole
were
event
confused.
was confused.
I think they were confused. I think maybe what happened is like some like the two separate people, because we didn't get reached out to by the same person,
right?
So like the person who reached out to you is maybe in charge of like the list of the section we were in, and the person that was that reached out to me was in charge of this other section.
That would make
so they
sense.
probably were like, oh, reach out to Nicky too, and didn't say like he's supposed to be in the not cool people.
That would make sense. Yeah,
but you know what? I'll rock with it.
Yeah, I got invited by one of the girls who puts it on through Instagram DMs like months ago, and then she's like, my team will be in touch. So that would make sense if maybe there was like a confusion, but we ended up in the show. It was really cool. It was so much fun. Yeah, it was cool to see an award show. And then I also just wanted to like end it on, you said you started Love is Blind?
Yes, I did, but I have so many thoughts. Okay, I just want to briefly say there's one guy on this season of Love is Blind. Well, there's a lot of issues going on Love is Blind, but there's one guy who his girlfriend is like, the one he chose is clearly maybe a little, he said in his words, clingy, and like she just needs reassurance, and I think he doesn't like her. Anyways, it's a whole thing. He told her, so in a conversation, they bring up like, oh, you don't say I love you to me enough. Like, you don't tell me I love you. And this was, do you want to know his excuse for why he doesn't tell her he loves her? Why? When they were on the beach, he ate too many taquitos and he bit the inside of his lip. And it, and it really hurt. The craziest things on that show. He was like, I literally couldn't say I love you because my lip hurts because I ate too many taquitos and bit the inside. The bar is so far down. It's through the floor. Like, it's crazy. Well, and I think there needs to be, we've done an episode on this, I'll link it in the show notes, about how I think reality TV, as a watcher of it, I think it's exploitative. Oh, yeah. But I also think like what we don't consider when watching it is these people are like
in a warehouse with no windows or doors for weeks. And I think we are literally, I'm not a psychologist, in my reality TV mind watching opinion, we are sometimes watching like psychosis happening on these shows.
Oh, yeah.
And like them forming these like traumatic bonds with people.
Yeah, and they're also like liquored up.
And they are like, they're in a lawsuit right now for not getting enough food. But this season, the amount of times they pan to them like eating, I'm like, they are getting ready for Judge Judy. So they have like evidence that these people eat. And there's also one other girl, I won't say who, so I don't give you a spoiler. But this one guy, he has his phone and he has an Apple Watch, and that's important. Mm-hmm. And they're like at home now, right? So they're in their hometown.
Okay.
And she goes, "Where were you last night? Like, you didn't come home till 6 a.m. And he goes, "I was at the bar with the guys. Like, you can check my location. Like, you have my location. I was in the parking lot talking to this girl, but we were just talking in the parking lot." Mind you, no one's doing anything good in a parking lot at 5 a.m. unless you're on your way to work.
What are you doing?
So she goes, "Okay, so you were in the parking lot. The bar is called Lost and Found." She goes, "Okay." And he goes, "You can check my location." She's like, "I'm a grown woman. Like, I don't need to check your location." So she got his like arm, like he's disarmed. He's like, "No, I wasn't." And she goes, "Okay, so actually I was checking your location and you were in Uptown where blah, blah, blah lives, the girl that you almost matched with, and you stayed at her house." And he looks at his Apple Watch, and I think in that moment he realized you can also track someone's location from their app. So I think he left his phone and car in the parking lot of the bar and took his, and like still had
he was scheming.
He was scheming.
He was scheming. He did that on purpose.
So this season is bringing the good TV, though.
That needs to be an Apple commercial.
Oh my God, yes.
They need to brand that.
Never
they
get
need
lost.
to hire that girl about like cheating on your spouse. Like, get your boyfriend an
Apple
Apple Watch for
Watch.
Christmas,
Yes.
for his birthday.
There you go.
That's crazy. But I also was thinking, like, do you think the Love is Blind experiment can ever actually work?
Absolutely not. It only worked the first time, and that's it.
I think so. Even the first time, though, I think it is so important to see the way people like interact with the world. Like,
Yes.
I can't marry somebody without seeing the way you treat a waiter or an Uber driver.
Exactly.
Like, there's just no way.
Ellen DeGeneres said it once about The Bachelor. She's like, anyone can fall in love like in like Punta Cana with like an unlimited wine and like roses all over a beach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that anytime someone goes on a reality show for love, it's maybe not going to work. But the only thing I do think is earnest is like my boyfriend and I are watching like Love on the Spectrum. Like, I think that's very earnest because it's about people who are on the autistic spectrum. And I think it's like that one seems very genuine.
I think it's earnest for the people in it, but sometimes I watch it and I do feel like it's a little...
I think reality TV in general is just going to be exploitative.
Maybe.
Which is like, that we've done an episode on that. So you guys can see our opinions on that. So, but this was great. Thank you guys.
It was so great to see you all this week.
Yes. Comment, subscribe.
Follow us on Spotify so we hit 10,000.
Yes. Continue the conversation in the Discord and let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on Coachella. If you're going this year, let us know. Maybe we'll do a little meetup or something.
That's such a good idea.
That could be fun.
Okay. Bye.